Get ready to be inspired by the great things happening in rural education. The Rural Scoop will bring you new ideas and innovative solutions. We'll dive into education issues and we'll highlight what's working in your rural communities. You'll hear from a variety of educators, administrators, professionals, and others who will provide relevant and engaging content in each episode. And now, for a special episode recorded at the Arizona Rural Schools Association Conference, here's your host, Ty White.
So the first question, and this is just sort of to break the ice, there's no trick questions in this room, right?
All right.
Why don't you tell the audience who you are and why you come to the Resilient Rural ARSA Conference?
Starting time then?
Yeah.
All right. Well, my name is Robert Di Bacco. I am one of the founders of Rivet Learning, and we do instructional coaching for K-12 schools across the country. We're based out of the Phoenix area, and I work a lot with rural schools across the state of Arizona. And so we are radically trying to change how schools deliver professional development and support their educators. So it's only natural that we participate in the Resilient Rural Conference, So that's kind of why we're here. And we were here last year and work with a lot of schools and love the crowd.
So that's actually my next question. How many times have you been to this conference?
This is our second year in a row.
Second year. Okay.
Yeah. Though, we've known some of the people here for several years, but this is the second time that we've fully participated in the conference. Yeah.
Okay. Was there anything you were looking forward to this year? Or anything you've seen so far that really stood out?
I think the thing we look forward to most is just reconnecting with everyone. Everyone has such busy schedules and, we know a lot of the folks here. And it's just nice to kind of rekindle those relationships. That's what we look forward to most. So far this time here, what, has been interesting is meeting some new folks, even some of the, we have a table and some of our folks that are beside us, we started getting friendly with them and get to know some different vendors. And, we had a nice dinner last night with some old superintendent friends of ours, and they introduced us to some new superintendents. So it's really that relationship focus is really critical, because we can all learn from each other and share experiences.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm with you on that. I really like the idea of being back in person together, and COVID sure taught us, right?
Yeah. It's really that sense of community. I hate to say that the content is irrelevant because it's not, but the most relevant part for me is the sense of community, and having worked in a rural school before and understanding kind of the issues that rural schools have. We all need to be tight knit and, understand each other a lot better. And I think that's what these types of conferences are for. It's to rekindle and have some great discussions. And so check on all of those things.
So you've already said this, you're here with Rivet. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell our audience, what is it that you have to offer for them? What is it that they could get from you?
From Rivet specifically?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of coaching companies out there. But what is unique about us is kind of our philosophy on how coaching gets delivered. And the schools and districts that we work with, we're providing choice and agency for the educators that we work with. And what we mean by that is we have a platform, think of it as a coaching marketplace, and every educator that receives coaching can choose their own coach. So they would go on our platform and view all of the profiles. We have about 100 different coaches across the country that span grade ranges and subjects and specializations. And they can choose who they work with. Our philosophy is that you should be able to choose who you want to work with, because that's when the actual learning happens. And if you don't choose who you work with and feel comfortable who you're working with, you don't build that psychological safety that allows you to be vulnerable and helps you grow professionally. And that's what's missing with a lot of, coaching relationships out there. Is it's like hate to go to the therapy route, but you want to choose a therapist that works well with you. And kind of that's really the unique factor of what we're trying to do. And that's why we're really trying to radically transform how coaching is delivered, because gone are the days where people don't have individualized choice. We differentiate for our students when we instruct. So why don't we do that for the adults in the room?
Those are good answers. I think a lot of people hear that better.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me about your own rural experiences?
Yeah. So, I worked at a rural school, and like a lot of all these rural individual experiences, wore 1,000 different hats. I started out as a teacher and moved to an administrator, and none of the things that I did were necessarily related. So I taught Spanish since I have, a lot of experience in that area, but I also taught geometry at the same time. I was the outdoor specialist at the school. I was the basketball coach. I was the volleyball coach. I was the bus driver. And so I think that really encompasses the rural experience. Is we need diverse people that can just fill many different roles, because you don't have the luxury of having one individual for everything that you need to have done in a school. And so that's kind of my experience, but I really enjoyed that because, I always consider myself kind of jack of all trades, master of none. And I think that, that's what makes rural schools unique. I think we all just, again, back to this community aspect, that's what I really felt at a rural school, because you all just kind of have to pitch in to figure out how to get this done and deliver the services for the benefit of the students. And if everyone's not pitching in, then that doesn't create a rural school.
It's funny. I think that jack of all trades mentality is very much a rural mentality too. I think that's why the troubleshooting becomes such a thing, right?
Yeah.
How we fix problems.
Yeah, 100%.
What does the expression "the rural advantage" mean to you?
The rural advantage.
Yeah.
Well, if I think about it, it's the theme here, I guess, is community again. And I think that that's what the rural advantage is. I think that rural has the luxury of having to depend on many different people to get the job done. And I don't think that necessarily, it can exist, but is not necessarily happening in the urban level, because there's so many other, resources and, more people in that particular area. In the rural communities, we all have to kind of come together to get the job done. And that sense of belonging, I really think is unique to rural communities. And so that's what that phrase means to me anyway.
That's good. That's good. One of my favorite parts about this conference is that ARSA recognizes 10 outstanding teachers from across the state, people who've really put in the time and done incredible things. And so kind of in that vein of self-reflection, I'm curious if you've got any particular teachers you'd like to share or shout out that impacted your career or your life.
Yeah, interesting. I don't think we have enough time to mention all the teachers that had an impact on me. But let me see. That's an interesting question. Yes, they're Ty. Shout out to, this person I'm going to shout out to is a woman, Miss Joan Jones. And the reason I'm going to give a shout out to her, she lives in Dewey, Arizona. So, nice rural community there. But just the sweetest woman. Wasn't my teacher per se, but I worked with her. And, I think that recognizing quality teaching is really only a small component of what makes a really good teacher. That instruction part. It's human nature. It's the caring attitude, the, do whatever you need to do for your students. And this woman, Joan Jones, really encompassed that for me. And so I think that that's really important. And all the 10 teachers that we're honoring here at this conference, they all share a component of that, because it's not just about the instruction, right? It's much more than that, and how all of their caring abilities and their personality really resonates with the students, and that's why they get the results. So that's my shout out. So
being as you work for Rivet, you've got some pretty good networks out there. You've got people across the state that probably there's some of them that ought to be here, right?
Yeah.
If there was someone kind of sitting on the fence, not really sure about committing their time or their resources, what would you tell them about this conference that might convince them to come next year?
I would say to them that you're on your island because you think it's an island. And you need to get off your island to realize that you're actually part of a larger territory. And that's this really community aspect that I'm talking about. And until you venture out or off of your own island, you don't realize that there's a big community out there that share the same issues, the same concerns. Again, there's nuanced differences there, of course, but you need to celebrate the commonalities and problem solve some of the differences. And I think that that's what you get from meeting with people in person and attending this conference.
That's it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rural Scoop. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, or even leave us a comment. And be sure to follow on Twitter at Dr. Sadorf. That's Dr_SADORF, so that you never miss a new release. You can also check out previous episodes of The Scoop wherever you get your podcasts. Production support for the Rural Scoop is provided by Chattanooga Podcast Studios. Find out more at ChattanoogaPodcastStudios.com. See you next time for more great discussions about rural education.